And there we go. Hello, everybody. It's Jack at the socialyetdistanced, and we're here tonight for a special podcast and video event with Fran Lock, our friendly doctor of poetry from the UK, and Zak Ferguson, who is also a poet and author and chameleon, as you might be able to tell here shortly, and quite the talented person all the way around. Presenter, publisher, poet, writer, musician, artist, ne'er-do-well. I have no more adjectives, and I've run up against my British wall. So
That's enough. That's enough.
So I will pass it over to Fran, let you say hello and introduce Zak, and Zak will chat afterwards.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Social Yet Distance. I am indeed Fran Lock, and you will notice today that my voice is very calm and very flat, or at least much so than normal, because we have a new dog who's sleeping very quietly. And after about 8 hours straight of running up and down and ripping the head off a blue dinosaur, she's finally settled. But you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about the writer, artist, videographer, small press punk provocateur, Zak Ferguson of Sweat Drenched Press fame. He's here with us today, and he looks absolutely amazing. He has the makeup that I wish I had. He's like an extra member of Insane Clown Posse. It's truly glorious. And Zak, how are you doing this evening?
I'm well, Fran. It's great to actually talk to you I wouldn't say in the flesh, but live.
Yeah.
Instead of getting endless voice notes from me and you're like, oh, please stop. Please stop. I've got a life. I've got work, Oh, that's reading for me, Fran. Can you please? I'm doing this really amazing short video. Can you do it? Yeah, sure, whatever.
Now, I love your voice notes, and I like to have messages from you. You've always got something to say. And this is what I want to talk to you first about the press, because I know that you started, or I think you started Sweat Drenched Press in 2020, right?
Yeah.
And I want to ask about the impetus for founding that press, because I have a feeling that I've been described as insultingly prolific, but I feel like you are insanely prolific, like actually insanely prolific. And I almost feel that I feel like the publishing world was just not ready for your jelly and it couldn't contain you. And I look at the press as this wonderful kind of like just this expansive imaginarium where all of the craziness goes into your own kind of world. So I really want you to tell people about that. I think that would be a fantastic start.
Well, I think the journey initially always came from being an outsider in every facet of life. I mean, you just have to look at the way I'm dressed up for this interview. You can tell that I'm trying to make a statement of some sort. I don't know. It's my life choices. It's the impulse. It's that impulsive nature. And I just got to the point where it's just like, did you hear that? That was a diffuser. I think it's trying to tell me something. Anyway, sorry. Great timing.
We've been diffused.
So yeah, it's born from that knee-jerk reaction that guides me in life. I just got really fed up of small presses having very small minds and small penises, those who run it. I've come up against so many people that follow the herd. It's a sheep mentality, and I just got bored of it. And then when you're led into this belief that you're beholden to one press or one person, it corrupts you. So then you become the figurehead for that press.
Yeah.
And then if you do anything wrong, oh yeah, he said that off of his own initiative. Oh, but he's the issue. Blah 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 blah. And I just thought, fuck that. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to own it. I'm saying it. I'm not saying it on the behalf of this press, that person. So yeah, I got a lot of flack from a lot of weird American extreme horror writers, like just going for me with pitchforks and making up lies, hearsay. And I just thought, this is boring. And just because I want an extra few likes on Facebook and because a few bizarro writers are going to share my link to my book, which no one's going to buy anyway. You know, like it's that mentality of, yeah, my audience. What fucking audience? You haven't built up an audience. You're getting likes on Facebook. That's not an audience. And I think that's the culture we live in, sadly. And I just thought, put your money where your mouth is and just start putting out books by fellow outsiders who just need a little bit of a push, a little bit of a leg up, that they need a home. You know, like I'm the type of person that would take in any form of stray. Like I'm the type of person who went out on the streets of Eastbourne at 2 o'clock in the morning and got conned by this local heroin addict. And he was standing by this chalk like mosaic. And I'm like, oh, I like you. You're artistic. You've got nuance. And throughout the evening, he basically groomed me. Pieces of his clothing were coming off and being draped on me. And all these police officers were coming by and they're like, oh, yeah, he's one of them. And I'm like, I am one of them. I'm friends. I'm their friend. And then they took me to this quarantine building and started cooking up. And I was like, no, I'm not here for that. And I was still convinced in my head, these are good people. They're not using me. So I forced my mum to go out and feed this guy called Brian. And she'd come back with the sandwiches and she'd be like, he was happy to take my fags, but he didn't take the sandwich. I was like, oh, that's not very Brian-like. Like he was my best mate. And then then I did the Prince's Trust. And then you do things with the community. And I saw this guy called Brian. When that's Brian. And the man who was running it at the local church went, he ain't called Brian. He's called Paul. I went, oh. He took me into his drugs den and basically wanted me to feel his artistic talents. He went, oh, no. He hasn't got any artistic talents. He's a hustler. He's a liar. I was just like, oh, fuck's sake. So, naivety and all such and sundry. But, my life, it's patterned like that. And I thought, I've had enough being taken in by, let's call them Bryans of the world, being taken for a fool and, taking as much as they can out of you. And I thought, I want to give back. I want to give back to the fellow outsider and created the press. And to be honest, it's like a lot of people have said to me, you publish mostly all of your own work. And I'm like, well, yeah, I dictate. I can, if I put a book out and it's got a shit cover, that's on me. If it's got terrible formatting, that's on me. That's my the autonomy thing. It's my control. I'll take control of that. I will be held up at gunpoint, and I will admit, yeah, I shit the bed on that book or this book, but you can't then turn around and then blame it on anyone else. So I'm kind of sadistic in that sense. It's almost like I'm looking for people to shit on me, but it's about ownership and just taking ownership of what I'm doing and just helping the fellow little man. But you come across so many different types of characters. Like we've published, I wouldn't say big names, but names that are out there in the ether. And you're like, oh, they've got clout. They've got some clout. That's quite good for my press. And then you realise those with clout, wankers, awful, horrible. And then you have one moment of candidness with them, like, I don't think the press is going to survive. They're like, yeah, by the way, I don't want to be with you anymore. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Okay. And then they go off and sign a contract for this book to go somewhere else, even before their contract died with us. But recently, the process of Sweat Drenched Press is kill your darlings. As much as I want to put out all these books, it's if it's not feeding itself, I can't do it. It's not if it's not going back and feeding itself, and which it's stopping at the moment. I'm just killing my darlings, and I'm being quite forthright with people. You're coming to me, you want to micromanage this book. You know the ins and out of POD, self-publishing, do it yourself. Just do it yourself. Full autonomy. Create your own press. Do it. And recently it's been more cutting the fat, and not cutting the fat in a negative sense of, oh, I want to get rid of them, but in a sense of, I've given you a home. You see, we can do it. You can do it. Go on and do it yourself. Self-publish. Create your own press. Like small press has no money in it at all. And unless you're in a lucky position where you can draft up you apply for a grant at the Arts Council, which is
my best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's still even through these avenues. There's this committee and this mentality, and it's exhausting. And that's, to summarize it, that's what I wanted to take out of it. Really, the whole publishing side, you, me, and let's just try and get this book out. But recently, it's just been to the extent that people want to micromanage it, that I've gone, no, publish it yourself. Not to be rude, you need to publish it yourself. Because if you're micromanaging me, like the width of the spine up juxtaposed with the page, 105 pages, there's a text, and it doesn't have the essence of the spinal fluidity. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? No. You want to book out? Sure, I'll put it out, and I favour the more boundary pushing, the more extreme. Like, we have a writer called N. Cassiopo, and he writes like an incel, like the whole spelling, like his whole mythos is incel based, like toxic culture, the weird fanboy fandoms, heavy metal fans. He just gets right into it and taps into it. And I would say, honestly, unless a publisher would butcher his books, you would release 10 pages if a big publisher had their way with that. They would butcher it. They would go, oh, spelling, grammar. And you're like, no, it's deliberate. It's deliberate. This is very clever. He's being clever. You may not think it's clever because it's got spelling errors and typographical lunacy, but it is very clever because it's tapping into something. And, it must be grueling having to expose yourself to the world of incels and put out these books, and everyone goes, there's something wrong with this person. But yeah,
Zach, what do you think about the future, though? I mean, we've all kind of watched the progression of what's happened with publishing. Long gone are the days where you get a contract and an expense account where you're going to go tour your book, that kind of thing. And so we've stepped down in progress to where we are now. What do you see happening in the future, and where do the advantages lie for the actual writer, in conjunction with the publisher, whoever that might be? What do you see that vision looking like?
It's in the shit. It's in the dumps. The truth is, when a person like Bret Easton Ellis has the audacity to go on his fucking podcast and goes, I'm not getting a big hefty check, darling, you're just like, oh shit, he's gone up shit's creek then for you, innit, mate? When you're seeing people like Chuck Palahniuk, who has always been an amazing he's almost like his own PR. He goes out, he goes out there, he books the venues, and it doesn't matter that he's the writer of Fight Club or associations with this. That starlight only lasts a certain amount of time, and then you have to do the work. Like that I see with Fran. Fran goes out and she does the readings. She engages with all these other, I'm going to say it on her behalf because she probably won't, all these cliques that are in this world, and she will go out there and she'll push her fucking amazing, her poetry and her message. And it's like, I am here, I am staying here, and I know you don't want me here, but I am here. And I think that's the future of it. Pure determination, gumption, and belief in self. And, it's hard to have belief in self. The artist is notorious for self-loathing, self-recrimination. But I think the push is, I think it's an Irish thing, actually, because we've got an author, Christopher Owens, who we've just published a book, Dethrone God. And he's an Irish writer. He goes out and he gets his books in independent stores. He gets his book in the hands of band members or even like even if they're indie scene, in his eyes, they're enough. So he'll get those books to them. And I think a lot of the future is in the author's hands, because I think as a publisher, there's ever so much that you can do. Because I've sent probably hundreds upon hundreds of books to various reviewers. Reviewers, where's the review? To all these reviewers, to all these venues, to all these independent bookstores. And I'm quite soft when it comes to the independent bookstores. I'm like, look, keep all the money. I'm just happy to get the books on the shelves, and I'm happy to get, the word out. And but I think the future of publishing is very much in the hands of the authors. And it's so hard, I'm a hermit. I don't like going out. I don't like social engagement. I don't do that push. I don't do that push, and that's maybe my own issue, or maybe I burnt my bridges in the Brighton Fringe Festival scene for doing weird anarchist stuff. But that's by the by, you know. Like, why is this boy buried 20 books in the Brighton Pavilion?
Well,
Because I could.
but the other side of that, I mean, kind of where I see that going is why this, social yet distance exists is because there are so many changes going on and everybody's in an uproar. And the truth everybody doesn't want to talk about is it's all going to be owned by Amazon one day anyway. So all these people you think are big, HarperCollins level fucking publishers, they're all going to be owned by Amazon anyway. It's going to be the same process for the same thing, and it's going to get worse and worse because there'll be less and less people even involved.
Yeah.
And that being the case, it does go back to our hands. And I've felt a personal responsibility, and I think that Fran agrees with me that, it's kind of up to us to make sure those words are out there. Whether they're mine or anybody else's, or my artwork, or my stupid video that I made, with artificial intelligence in 7 minutes, because I gave it a text file. It doesn't, whatever the case may be, the tools are changing. And it's like, how are we going to adapt to that? But that leaves somebody who's a purist writer, which I am not. Fran Lock's probably the closest to that. If you're not a purist writer that just writes for the sake of writing, you're fucked. If you care about anybody reading your stuff, or you're happy with your Facebook likes.
Yes, that's it. Yes, that's the dichotomy, because it's feeding the machine constantly. Oh, you're going to pay £5 a month for your adverts on Facebook, or you can give a little bump of interest, or increase the interest of like the algorithm of your book on Amazon. It doesn't work either, because then you get 15 people in your requests section on Messenger going, "Why the fuck am I getting an advert for your book?"
Right.
And it's like, well, obviously you're my audience. No, I don't fucking want to read your book. I like pottery. And it's like, oh, well, why are you getting advertised for Sweat Drenched Press? We've seen things like this happen. And money doesn't lead all, and it's all about putting the words on the page. I'm very much in the Fran Lock camp. I write to survive, but I also write to keep something going inside of me. Something needs to be oiled or greased, and as odd as that sounds, something needs to keep the brain in function. And whether you've gone out for a little walk and you see a pile of dog shit outside your house, like I did earlier, it generates a process, an anger, and then if you tap into it, sometimes you produce shit like you've just found outside, or you produce something that's remarkable. And I think the most remarkable thing with us writers is the integrity of taking it straight from the brain into the fingers onto the page, whether longhand, whether typewritten. I'm a big believer of the integrity of the word as thought and then put on page. That's why I'm very limited when it comes to editing my own work. I feel there's an integrity and there's a nuance. And even though that I've created this, let's be honest, bollocks philosophy over typos and errors, you catch on to things like the whole Donald Trump confetti thing on Twitter, and you're like, oh, that's funny, I'm going to litter that in. And I spent more time editing a book backwards, as in the sense deliberately putting in typos just to fuck with the reader, than I did actually editing it and looking at it as a piece, as it's an integral piece put on the page. So my editing is not about excising or tidying. It's actually about, as you can tell by me talking, a deluge. It comes out with no filter, and I think it needs to be represented on the page, because otherwise I will be on the streets screaming at pigeons.
Yeah, and I feel like that might be the future of the publishing industry. It's
screaming at pigeons.
Screaming at pigeons. Just a bunch of us screaming at pigeons. Because I think.
Shall we talk about awards and competitions and such like that? Oh, never mind. I was just kidding.
Shall we? Let's not say we did. Oh my God. No,
Let's don't even say we did.
it's terrible. Because I think, one of the things that I wanted to kind of touch on was maybe because publishing changes and the apparatus that gets the words out change, but also writing doesn't change, and the mechanisms, the reasons why people write. I mean, actual writing, not just, gnomic vagaries farted into the ether on Instagram, like actual writing. I mean, those things don't change.
Right.
And, I've had a lot of conversations recently where I feel like people are coming around to self-publishing and the idea that you do the work yourself. Kevin McCann has recently published a book because he found that he's taking his work kind of to presses who want to clean up that voice. And they say, well, this is not acceptable. We don't want this. We sort of excise all your political sentiments or anything that makes you a sort of like embodied working class presence. So we'll cut that. And you can just have this nice kind of middle class direct. And all that was left is sort of like 4 or 5 poems about bees,
Right.
So he decided that he would do the book himself, and a lot of writers are kind of starting to do that now. But I think a press then becomes, it's not so much a publishing endeavor that's designed to make anyone money. Maybe it's a way of having a family and creating that kind of community of kind of outcasts and losers, right? I think that's
Yes, you've summarised. How long have we been talking so far? Everything that I tried to summarise, you've just succinctly put, beautifully put. That's it. It's about creating your own family and finding your people. And this is the thing, going back to what you're saying about they were cutting down his poetries and that there's a couple of stanzas left or there's a couple of poems left, and they're stripping you of your identity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's awful because there's this hand that's proffering. And in that hand is a nugget of gold. And anyone else would go, yeah, I'll have a taste of that. Do what you want. Take the money and run. But those are people who are in I'd say, a privileged position where they can take those chances, where they can go, fuck it, don't matter, does it? Because
or they can craft a book contract that lays it all off on the author, when all they've really done is maybe paid for the publishing, maybe paid for the design of a cover, maybe, and then stamped their name on the back and offered it on their website. As acceptable as that might have, or as cutting edge as that might have been 10 years ago when everybody was arguing about whether you should be reading a Kindle or not,
what?
It's always been the same. You end up with publishers who are preaching this family gospel when really all they're doing is stamping their name on your book.
Yes.
And what I found in my own personal experience, some of the people that are the closest friends of mine that are publishers reject my work on a regular basis, which is fine. But when it's done with words like, oh, we're just so backed up right now, I'm just not sure when we can get to it. And then, or we're not taking any books right now, that kind of thing. And then the next 6 months, they release 3 or 4 different titles, and never even, So I take that real personally, but I also see that as the same old fucking thing, man. It's humanity being greedy, and they found a soft underbelly to rub on and make it look good and attractive to the rest of the community, thereby tainting, certain words and ideas along the way, like independent publishing. Okay, what does that really mean? Does that mean I publish it myself? Does that mean you publish it? Does that mean we have a contract and I write 2 or 3 books for you? It could be whatever they decide.
Yeah. Independent of what?
Yeah.
Independent of what?
I literally know a press that has, here are the requirements for you to be accepted. If you meet these requirements, feel free to submit.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, wait a minute. Feeling a little elitist today?
Yes.
You're trying to tell me you don't have enough editors to read the shit.
Yes, especially the bigger ones.
Because you're out, having fancy dinners in restaurants because of all the books you sold.
Yeah.
Or contracts you signed.
And this what everything that you've said is true. But what I've come across as a publisher myself is that mentality has been placed at our feet. There's just me and Laura. Well, Laura's taken a back seat now because she's she's in a position in her work life where she has no time for the press, and they come to you and they're like like barking at you, and you're like, there's one person, you have no idea how hard it is. Like, this is the thing. I've set a precedent because I can put my books out within 48 hours, and I've done it recently, one after the other, after the other, after the other. I set a precedent for myself and maybe the press, and I had to express to them, no, it's okay, because if there's errors in there and it's shit, that's my book, that's not your book. But if I'm putting your book out, I'm going to give it its due diligence, and I like to give a lot of autonomy over the author. I always say to them, here's a template, just copy and paste it in, edit it how you would feel. I would go through it, proofread it, but it's always about how they would like it. But some people have come to me with I've just seen myself, I look like a twat. Anyway, they will come to you. How will anyone take this seriously? Everyone will be like, Sweat Trents, what? Nah, sod that. He thinks he's in the band Ghost. I can't believe it. I can't believe I've done this. I've ruined my one chance where I actually get offered to have an interview, and I've dressed up like I'm Gene Simmons' groupie.
No, you're the insane clown poet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they come with you with all these notions of what big presses are like we're resting on our laurels or we're secreting royalties, which really bothers me. It really bothers me because you can be lethal and turn around and go, you've made 25 cents and I can't even send that to you on PayPal, mate. So don't get on your high horse about your fucking royalties.
Right.
And they do, and they take this mentality of what they imagine the big presses are, and they put that hope and expectation on the small guys.
But they don't do any of the work that the big press would do. There is no promotion. There is no marketing. There is no anything other than we could find you a place if you want to come to Los Angeles, or whatever, we can, find you some places to perform if you want to come over, but if it's going to cost me $500 to go sell 2 books, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there was this big controversy surrounding an author who got paid 250,000 for a book called Fuck Boy in America. I don't know if either of you heard about this.
It seems like it. Does he spell it with BOI?
Yes.
Okay.
So this gentleman got a hefty 250,000 for boring boy, shit boy. It was terrible. The book was just garbage. But you got 250,000. Good for you, mate. Good for you. Because after that is going to the agent, and the rest of it is going to pay off your student loans.
And you just spent the rest in the hotel.
Exactly, promoting your book. See, the money doesn't go so far. And then there was a fellow writer who was like, he stole my style. He stole my style.
What?
Yeah, exactly. He stole my style. He stole my style. No one owns a style. And because he'd allied himself with this writer for so long and had blown smoke up his arse, when the time came where money was shown, this fellow artist who's in the indie scene said he stole my style. And then I saw a lot of indie presses related to this author, Crime Foul, doing big chunky statements on his behalf, basically enabling his outcry. And I just thought, this is just getting ugly for the sake of getting ugly. And this is why small presses are getting a bit too big for their boots. Some of them are, because some get an injection of audience, they get an injection of money. And then that's when, like you say, the whole weird criteria comes through.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go through a criteria before you can even get the email to send the submission. It's ridiculous.
Well, and when you do the digging, what you find out, and as you probably are well aware, Zach, if you do the digging, you'll find the research that whoever owns the press started it to publish their own book.
Yeah. Well, they'll be dishonest about it though, because if you track them way back, because there's so many people that shit on the POD platform, the Amazon platform, and it's like, I haven't got a basement to make zines.
Right.
I haven't got a working printer, but I have a free platform on Amazon which enables you to put your book out for free. It gets costly when you need to get author copies, which is a whole other fucking story. But
Yeah.
you try and explain this, and they still got this miasma in their head of how many copies are you putting out? It's print on demand. If you want it, they'll buy it. It's there, they'll buy it. If the demand is there, they will buy. So how many copies in a bookstore? We can't do that. If it ran like that, a small press, I wouldn't even be able to put out 20 copies of our books because the money's not there.
What do
So
you think about supplementing that with PDFs or ebooks?
I've butt heads with a lot of our authors about
Yeah,
about
me too.
about Kindles and ebooks. So I wanted to set again a precedent, this whole mystique that Sweat Trench Press only does physical books because it's an art object. I don't think reading a book on a slab is like reading a book physically. You know, there's an emotionality, there's a connection, and
I definitely agree with that. Here's the thinking. There are libraries of books that are out of print that authors may have the rights to, for example, that are just sitting somewhere and they're not ever going to pay to reprint them. So why not make an ebook and sell it for 99 cents? It's
well,
money they're making off their content for nothing.
yeah, I think that in that case, yes, it's very tricky because I noticed on when I started on KDP previously, Creator Space, it's like public domain, and I'm like, excuse me, and you can select an option that this book is in the public domain, and you can shove it out with a brilliant cover or a shit cover, and you'll get money off of that author. This is where I think copyright is tantamount, and I think certain things in the public domain, especially when it comes to literature, needs to be sacred and protected. Not a James Patterson or a John Grisham or anything like that. You know, fuck
Do
them.
you have to buy ISBN numbers in batches?
Now, it's good you brought this up because this is another tricky situation. You can pay for an ISBN, and per book, sometimes it's $20. Sometimes it can be, if it's on a good day, $12. But if you get a free one on Amazon, in the description bay, it says independently published. Now, we had quite a big poet approach us in the early days of Sweat Trench Press. She was really into what we were doing. Her poetry book was boundary pushing, and it was everything. It was a summation of what we wanted to do. And then it got to the stage of describing the layout, and she said, my university wants to know what press this is coming out with. And I said, well, you know what press it's coming out with? She went, yes, but it says in the initial contract that it won't show the press's name in the description bay. I went, no, because I'm not spending $20 on the ISBN just so I can go, my press's name's in the description bay. It's egotistical, and it's kind of, I wanted to break that enigma of, it says Sweat Trench Press. It's still an independent publisher. It's still independently published. It's still a print on demand book. And she pulled and she went, no, that's not credible enough for me. And I was like, okay, got to say goodbye. All because she couldn't have that in the description bay on Amazon. And it was heart-wrenching.
So you put it on page 3 of the book in small print where they don't even see it.
It's so bizarre, this idea of what is and what isn't credible. You know, I remember when sort of online publishing first started, it's like, no. You still need to be in the magazines. You need to be in these print journals. You need to be, you know, well, you've done however many small press books you're going to do now. Well, now you go to a bigger press. And I've had that because I'm now an old lady, and because I've done 13 books now. So I have people coming up to me, randos who don't even know me from a hole in the ground, coming up to me and going, so when are you going to do a book with, you know, when are you going to do a book with Faber? When are you going to do a book with Carcanet? I'm like, one, they're not queuing up and form, you know, they're not fucking orderly queue to ask me. And two, no. You know, I don't understand. Small press is not a stepping stone. These people's backs are not my ladder to get to where I want to go to. I'm interested in working in this area because this is where the sparks fly. It's at the edge.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me to be there. But I mean, the ignorance about what it's like to run a small press is astonishing.
Right.
So me and Padder Padder and Colette, Poetry was pressed, just Padder and Colette in a shed, right? And so we got onto this big prize list And we ended up for like the first kind of like couple of months after the prize had gone and we printed all these books out of pocket. Nobody made any money because it cost them that much to print the books. They had to print a certain amount of copies. They came over for the big ceremony. They've lost money. It's supposed to be a reward. And everyone's like, oh, well done for you. Well done for you being there with all the big presses. Well done. Pat, pat, pat you on the head like this. And it's like, well, it's not well done, is it? Because now we have fuck all money.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah, it's and that's the travesty. This is the thing, it gives you,
Not to mention the fact she should have fucking won.
yeah, yeah.
on just
And this,
financial grounds alone, right? But it's, and I mean, this is the thing about, and this is the ignorance, because you try to explain to people, well, it's fucked us because larger presses can afford to field more books because it costs you for every book you put out, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, Faber and Faber can enter 10 books onto the list. Well, Faber and Faber have got a bigger chance of winning in any given year. And indeed they have. They're first, then it's Carcanet, then it's Blood Axe. And then it's kind of like, you know, the cluster, and then it's the cluster of like small guys at the bottom. And it's like you sort of explain this to people and they kind of like, they look at you like, what? They have this perception, and I think the perception of how poetry works is based on a few films that people saw in like, you know, the 1970s. Yeah. And it's like it's this is not reality. This is not how it works. Nobody has any money. Even the people who are doing well have no money.
No, well, this is the thing. A lot of these what was it? Oh, there's a fantasy novelist I was quite pally with, and I saw his books in Waterstones, and I'm like, yeah, look at you. And he's like, no, not look at me. I'm living in a caravan and I'm living off of my teaching jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, 1 minute, but you've got a contract for 3 books with them. He goes, yep, and I still have to write those 2 other books.
Yeah.
And it hit me then. I'm like, I don't want to do that, because when I was very young, I had an experience that was very shady. I got quite a lot of contacts from a pseudo mentor when I was younger, Peter James, a crime novelist. Though he won't look at me now that he's a crime novelist. No, he was a horror writer when I knew him. What's going on? And he gave me loads of agents, as if like, go on, kid, prove me. And I got hold of one agent, and he was slimy as anything. And he basically sold a pitch for a book I wrote called Mr. Nick, which is out of print, of course. And I don't think I'm ever going to republish it because it's mainstream and it's not me. But it was a love letter to Monty Python and Terry Pratchett and Terry Gilliam, and he sold it as a outline. And I'm like, oh, okay. No. So it dawned on me that we were being offered around 10 to 20K. He would get a cut. I don't know. I was 18 and I was so excited and giddy, but I'm very proud of this. When I looked at the contract, it was the outline. And I'm like, I don't understand. He went, oh, they don't like your writing style. So why do they want my book? They like the outline, they like the premise, but they don't like your style. And he basically was like, go on, take the money and run. We'll get a ghostwriter, your name will be on the book. And this was associated with one of the biggest presses in my mind at that time. I won't out them because they'll probably sue me. I have no money. And it was ridiculous. And at the age of 18, I went, no, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. And then it was ushering of, but it's going to be a 3-book deal. You don't have to write the other 2. We like the outline. We like the pitch. We could sell an adaptation. And I sat back and I went, well, you're going to be in the shit because I ripped off the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. So you're fucked. So I pulled, but it was very revealing to me at that young age that when money's involved, it's twisted, it's greedy, and it's blinkered. It's very blinkered. And the big presses can afford to throw out, let's say, what is the biggest number in today's age? Let's say that Titan Books will release 20,000, 25,000 books and then reprint it if it's popular, if it's a Kim Newman book. But they're smaller, but they can take that risk. They can take that risk because they have at least 150 other authors that they can bet their hedges on.
Yes.
And they can make up for that. And they don't realise that with small presses. We don't have 150 or 350 other authors that can cover the cost of the print of these books. you know, it is out of pocket and it does kill you. Like we almost destroyed Sweat Trench Press because we're getting booked out, booked out, booked out. And we changed the initial contract to 4 contributor copies. The 5th one will go directly to the British Library, which is something that I was really proud of because I was like, that's posterity. You're in the British Library now. We've got you. And it was still complaints. Why can't I have more? Because we can't afford it. We can't afford it. And when other people bring in outsider artists who provide artwork, one guy was like, "Oh, she wants £1,000 for the cover," and I'm like, "We're not forking that out." And it was a really simplistic cover. It was almost like an imitation of a Twilight cover. I'm like, it's not worth £1,000. You know, I can get a free domain image like that and grade it 1,000 times, and it'll look the same.
See,
Just
Jack.
so you know, I can do covers.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say you should have asked. You should have asked for £1,000.
Yeah,
I'll
but
take $20.
well, no, this is the thing. This is the thing, Jack. Like, you get hold of indie authors, and then this fanciful notion takes them away. Like my
No, I
closest,
know. Listen, social yet distance has been in the individual pieces have been in progress since before I knew Fran, which we met, what, 12, 13, 14 years ago now.
Yeah.
So the individual pieces, like a couple of different stores, the bookstore, t-shirts, you know, all the different individual components have been coming together for a long, long time. And then the podcast and the video channel all serve as the place to bring those things together and to promote the other things. But I haven't made a penny off of anything at this point at all. And it's, you know, what frustrates me is I have 1,000 people that are calling them on my personal Facebook page that consider me a friend, okay? And I have 66 subscribers on YouTube, and I have gone to Facebook numerous times and literally begged people, just go subscribe and like the page, you know, watch a video or two so that I can get noticed, get enough subscribers, get noticed by Google, and start making money somewhere else. So I don't have to try to sell you a fucking t-shirt every time
t-shirt.
you see me. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
easy. Or go here and pay $5 a month to be a member, and you get a lot of this shit for free, and you get discounts on everything else. You know, so I've tried to put together a network and a system, but again, I keep going back to it. I don't understand why people don't follow through. They're gonna people bomb me all day long with events and books and poems and this and that, and I always share, and I'm always promoting everybody. I'm always smiling and talking good and going to events everywhere so everybody sees me. I, you know, laughingly refer, you know, everybody knows that I'm not the greatest writer in the world, but I will promote your shit, you know, and that kind of thing seems extremely valuable in the world that I live in. And it doesn't seem that to have you go subscribe on my YouTube channel should be that hard, or why you wouldn't want to do that. Because if you go and look, there's 150 videos of shit you will love. I promise you, you
Yeah.
know, from historical to, you know, hip hop poetry to freaking, you know, every podcast we've ever done, all the AI generated shit that I'm doing now, you know, so you
I
could
like that.
a lot's there, you
Yeah.
know, and I mean, it frustrates me. So I can only imagine what it might be like from a publisher's point of view, because you've got all those moving components and you're trying to put out a book with moody authors who can't even fucking hit a like page on YouTube for you,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It's well, this is the thing. This is what I've realised within the hellscape of publishing. I say to them, I say support each other.
Right.
You're with Sweat Drenched Press. If you see a book, if it's a poetry book and you're like, it's not for me, still share it.
Yeah.
Still encourage it. Get that algorithm going. Because as much as I hate the machine, I hate the sausage factory, I hate the meat, I hate the skin. You've got to use it. You've got to use it to your advantage. And then when you call upon people that you expect a little bit of loyalty and, like Fran says, a comrade, they don't do it.
Right.
They don't do it. And
Right.
I have been pulled up on my behavior, because I'm very open and honest about this. Oh, you're
Me too.
abrasive, you're aggressive. No, I'm honest. I'm an honest guy. You're disingenuous.